in Turkmenistan or Tajikistan for gas, but we landed, and the pilot said, "Yeah, if you guys want to get off, stretch your legs, it's fine." The funny thing is, I get off this airplane. I'm in civilian clothes going home. I get off this airplane, and there's this ring of soldiers of Asian descent, probably Turkmenistan, right? Of Asian descent surrounding us in old Soviet uniforms, but all their guns are turned on the inside. And I was like, oh, kind of weird. And this older dude in a business suit comes screaming across the tarmac, screaming. He's like, "What do you think you're doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" He's like, "Get your ass back on the airplane." I'm like, "No, they said we could get off." He's like, "Get back on the airplane." And I'm like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm the goddamn station chief out here, chief of base, whatever." It was like, "Oh, okay, I'll get back on the airplane." And they pumped some gas in the tank, and I finally realized that they weren't exactly friendly to us coming there, even though it was pre-coordinated, with the government and whatnot. And it was just kind of eerie. Some of the guys were able to get off the bird, get through the perimeter, and go buy some bathtub hooch from some old lady selling potato vodka on the side of the road. It's like, "Dude, you drink that stuff, you're gonna go blind," And, so I flew back home. Flew to Germany and caught a rotator out of there with civilian families, PCS, and whatever else. Got back to Atlanta, rented a car, drove home. Drove home to an empty house. My wife at the time happened to be next door with the contributors. I'll just call them that. And she finally came home and faced it, and it was weird because it was kind of cordial because I didn't really know what to say or really what to do. I mean, I was happy to see Devin and Savannah. They were 5 and 2.5, and just kind of figured it out. At this point, based on that deployment, I had proven myself. I was no longer the pariah, and I was accepted into the fold. And said, "Man, you did awesome out there. You did great. Nothing but positive feedback. Blah 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 blah." But they sent me out there to fail. That's the way I feel. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's the way I felt at the time. But it, because of that, it allowed me to really grow exponentially because I was hands off and I was with a whole crowd of people that didn't know me from nothing. With the 2nd Ranger Battalion guys. So I attempted to stay married for the sake of Devin and Savannah. Like I said, I grew up in a conservative Christian home, and to me it seemed like the right thing to do. And it was kind of a roller coaster several months. We were training, and I was trying to deal with all this stuff at home. And then the stuff with Iraq starts to move. So we're sitting around preparing to go to Iraq. My guys from the 17th, they all jumped into Fort Bragg for some rehearsals with some of the other special mission unit entities out there and some of the JSOC stuff. And I stayed back because John was being born. I was still married, so my chain of command was like, "Dude, stay home for the birth. It's basically your kid right now." So I stayed home for that. Excuse me. And then they came back. And then next thing I know, we're out the door in March, and we're sitting in northern Saudi Arabia, just hanging out, just waiting for something to happen. I remember we'd sit up on top, and that was absolutely calms out. There was no letters home, there was no telephone home, nothing. So I was just literally hanging out, and I'd hang out with my Army guys from 3rd Ranger Battalion. I remember sitting up on top of an ISU 90, and I was teaching the Army Forward Observers some kind of class related to CAS because you were just filling time. And I remember just watching cruise missiles go over us, and F-18s with an F-18 diverted down there for a maintenance problem, and when it took off vertical. I remember freaking the DAPs, the MH-60s with guns and rockets on them, and the little birds going across the border, and all they were doing is just shoot up the shit out of VISOP station, border patrol control points between the Saudi and Iraqi border, and just smoking them. We're just sitting there like, man, we're gonna miss the show. This sucks, So far, and we were rehearsing. We rehearsed for days upon days upon days. It seemed like forever, but we really were only in Saudi Arabia there for like 3 weeks, and but it seemed like forever. And based off the performance of the first Iraq War, 3 weeks is you win war. You can win a war in 10 hours. So like, what is going on? And so finally, we rehearsed to jump into, back then it was called Saddam International Airport. Now it's Baghdad International. And we were going to jump in, traditional Ranger mission, and seize the airport. And that's what we were going to do. And to be quite honest with you, I've never really enjoyed jumping. I've enjoyed some of the military freefall stuff. If it's not nighttime, I'm not on oxygen, and I don't have equipment strapped to me. You know, if I'm doing it at 12,500 feet, I'm just going to go get my sky boogie on. It's great. It's still nerve-wracking for me, you know. But when it comes to static line stuff and you got all your kit on you, I was not looking forward to that. Fortunately for us, we didn't have to jump on Saddam International. Probably a good call because I don't think it would have turned out well for the assault force, just based off the defense of that and the way it was positioned. So we got diverted to a new mission. So we took off at a C-17. Alpha Company did jump on the H-1 airfield in western Iraq. I think they defended it from a couple of goat herders. I guess my assumption is that H-1 airfield was bombed to the Stone Age from the first Gulf War, because it was a very large airfield, but the structures were all rubble.
H-1 outside?
H-1 was out there kind of towards Tal Afar, way out west.
Okay.
And maybe it was Al-Assad, I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. And so we landed while ACO jumped and secured it, and I was still, my buddy Mark Foster, one of my best friends in the world, was just, he's been in 23 years and he's still mad he never got a combat jump. I've been in 21 and a half years and I'm ecstatic I never got one. You know, because there's nothing fun about that. You know, jumping out of 500 feet with no reserve and just your chute opens and you hit the earth at freaking Mach 9 does not sound good. And there was a lot of broken femurs and everything else associated with that stuff. And I came out with one piece. And so we stayed the night there. It was cold. Man, it was cold that night. And the next day we got our mission. And the mission was, initially, we were going to drive to the Syrian border and we were just going to blow up more border patrol points. Something along those lines. I was like, man, that's an E-Tax, that's a wet dream, man, mission, man. All I got to do is stay over here, shine my little ISLID IR pointer at this target, and have people bomb them. And it's easy, and stay cleared hot. As we're driving out that way, we get a change in mission en route. I wasn't aware of it at the time. I was sitting in the back of our gun truck, hunkered down on the spare tire, comfy, and just driving across the desert. There was so much inaction going on. There was nothing to do that, you know, when you're riding the back of those things, you're kind of getting old to sleep. You know, it's very hard. It's me, two gunners on the side, with their 240s or saws where they had on the good truck, and the company commander as the TC and the driver, and a guy up in the turret. I'm sitting there in the back, and I remember the company commander. I think it's General Dave Doyle now. Anyway, Captain Dave Doyle, excellent American. He says, "Hey, TC, what are you monitoring back there?" I'm like, "Oh, what's that, sir?" He's like, "What are you monitoring back there?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm monitoring the fires now. We're good." My radio was turned off, man. There was nothing for me to do. You know what I mean? He's just trying to make sure I'm awake. You know what I mean? So at dawn breaks, we get to where we're going. We circle the wagon, so we got all the Humvees in a circle with guns pointed out. We set up a rest plan. And the rest plan is, now conventional TACP, there's memorandums of agreement with the Army. We don't do guard duty. We don't do KP duty. We don't do any of that stuff because we're communicators. We have our own requirements. Most of the Army that's been deployed with TACPs understand that now, but still it's a constant re-education cycle where they're like, why aren't you go? What do you mean you're not going to pull a guard watch in the talk? Well, that's not my job. Why not? Well, because there's 4,000 of you and there's 5 of me. That's why. You know? And, but when you're in units like that, you got to kind of share the burden with them, you know? So we're dismounted and we're going to get some shut-eye, and the contingent, CP Black, Command Post Black that I was with, they're like, hey, we're going to do 30-minute radio, whatever it is. And I told the guy next to me, I can't remember who it was. I told him, I was like, dude, when you wake me up, make sure you wake me up. Like, physically shake me and make sure I'm coherent. And to this day, I vaguely remember somebody waking me up, but I don't remember being woken up per se. And I woke up first. The SATCOM handset's on the ground, which is a little bit of static going through. I'm like, oh shit. But fortunately, nobody called. I think it was my fault. But fortunately, nobody called. So anyway, so we all get up. Everybody's got some rest. And company commander comes and gets me. And we walked across the hill. About that time, I realized my boss was there too, because we picked up the contingent of Talk 2 element from battalion. Eric Brandenburg, great friend. I just had a dinner with him the other night when I was at Benning. Great friend of mine. I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here? We're great, So we linked up with the company commander. We